All right, we're going to be talking about one of the most important parts of your racking system, the frames. It's a critical component of your racking system. So let's dive into what frames are and how you can maintain and repair them. So first, what is a frame? What is this thing that we call frames in the warehouse racking industry? The frame is this vertical component consisting of the vertical columns, the struts, and the foot plates that are down at the bottom. So those are the three components that make up a vertical frame. And those frames are put together and attached together by beams. And that's what makes up your whole racking system. And the frame operates as one of the major components of your system. So taking care of these critical components are going to keep your racking system working well and safe in your warehouse. So defining characteristics of your pallet rack systems, let's look at what those are. First of all, a lot of times there's different steel types. This steel type will differentiate what type of racking system you have. You'll have one made out of roll form steel or structural steel. Now, either form of those steels is perfectly fine. It's been designed and chosen for your racking system and your racking frame in order to meet the engineering standards of your racking system. So just be able to identify if you have a roll form steel or a structural steel component in your racking system so that when you repurchase those, you'll be getting the same kind of racking frame system. So there are different punch styles, and this is going to be a defining characteristic. You don't want to have different punch styles within your system. You're always going to be buying from the same manufacturer or from a replacement part kit like Mac Rack that has identical punch styles to your manufacturing, your OEM manufacturing system for your warehouse system. So make sure that you know your punch style for your racking system, and Mac Rack has pallet rack repair kits for all the different types of punch styles that are manufactured in today's market. Now you need to pay attention to the foot plate, and particularly to the foot plate size. You shouldn't be innovating on your foot plate size. The certain size that you're given isn't just convenience for someone to screw it in. It's actually dictated by the seismic needs and the other engineering needs of your industry and your location. So whatever size that you have and thickness that you have of your foot plates should be consistent throughout your warehouse, and they need to be consistently anchored. I've read university studies where they've done forensic post-collapse examinations of racking systems, and they found that oftentimes what happens is that there are failures to bolt down the systems, and the systems will engage in all sorts of movement that they weren't designed to do because they weren't properly anchored. So keep your system, your frames, all must be properly anchored in order to avoid one of the easiest to avoid problems of your entire racking system is to keep your parts properly anchored. Now, the other defining characteristic is your frame coating or paint. We at Mac Rack use powder coating, which chemically bonds to your frame at high temperatures, which we send it through an oven so that it chemically bonds with the steel, so that that paint, the powder coating, won't be easily removed and corrosion cannot happen, because that's one of the critical things that can happen to your systems if you just have a light coat of paint on your frame. So that's going to be one of the defining characteristics. So let's talk about the engineering. You need to keep and maintain the same engineering that you had from the beginning. Now you have LARC design papers, engineering papers that you should be looking at that will dictate how your frames should be assembled, how high they should be, what kind of weights they can withstand, and you need to be consistently following those LARC plans so that you don't deviate from the type of frame that is needed for your warehousing system. So let's talk about how frames get damaged, and these are the main culprits. Are forklift systems that are driving through your rack systems. Here we're looking at a very narrow aisle racking system, so it takes a good driver to be able to get through these systems without damaging. It takes a lot of skill. Very easy for this to get damaged. Oftentimes the damage is through backing into a frame or turning into a frame because you can't see where you're headed. And so it's critical that you take care and train your forklift drivers well. And if they do have an impact, to let you know immediately so you can take care of it and address the situation as soon as possible. Here's one that's a little bit less well known, is improper loading. Oftentimes your frames will People will try to overload the top frame because there's more space. They can double pallet the top, and that will put a lot more stress. Your racking system was designed for even loading, not uneven loading, because it will tilt your rack towards one side and damage your frames. So be careful to follow the specifications of your racking system, and your warehouse management software will also try to keep things distributed well throughout your system. So keep your frames in good health by proper loading. Low quality steel. Now, if you're buying used rack and a rack of unknown origin, this could be a problem because a lot of overseas manufacturers will use sub-quality steel. And so make sure you're buying a good quality product from a known manufacturer with a known manufacturing source so that you don't get substandard steel in your racking. Another thing that can damage your racking is corrosion. So if you've got a lot of corrosion, it will deteriorate in quick order the overall quality of your racking system. So keep an eye out for that, and you want to address it as soon as possible and not let it get to this level and standard of corrosion. It can be addressed by repainting or replacing any corroded parts. So you can also need to be careful to make sure that your punch holes don't ever get damaged. It's a minor point, but they can be damaged by the impact of a forklift, or they can be impact through seismic activity. You need to be inspecting these things so that these parts aren't ripped out or something like that. And you need to make sure that they maintain their shape and size and their structural integrity. So another thing that's kind of subtle is out of plumb, because it might look good to you, but if it's more than a half an inch per 10 foot out of plumb, you need to correct that. And that can be corrected with shims and other measures that will shore up the plumb of your frame. So be paying attention to that. So let's talk about how you might be able to inspect your frames for damage. Here at MacRack, we've got the online inspection tool that you can use to inspect your frame. So what this does is it helps you to go throughout your warehouse and look through on your phone without downloading an app or anything like that. Just visit our website, fire up this app, and you'll be able to see the specifications that we've been discussing here in this article, all live on your phone, and not just for your frames, but for every single part of your warehouse system. So it's a great tool for you to use to inspect your warehouse. We really recommend at MacRack that you get a professional to come in and inspect your warehouse periodically. So it should be twice a year or at least once a year, depending on how much your warehouse is used and what kind of traffic patterns you tend to see in your warehouse. So how do you repair pallet rack frames? Well, one method you could use is just repurchase the OEM frames. And in doing so, you're going to have to unload all the frames, disassemble all of the frames, and then reassemble them, and then replace all of the product that you took off. Or you can use the repair methodology, which is why we exist at MacRack, is to give you a more expeditious way of repairing things, and sometimes even stronger replacement methodology, because it will give you a stronger foundational piece with more robust strength than the OEM part, and with built-in protectors at the bottom. So our parts have these built-in protectors, and they're made out of structural steel, and they're meant to exceed the original manufacturing's system's strength and specifications, so that you're going to minimize damage at this bottom foundation row height of the bottom 5 to 10 feet of your racking system. So pallet rack repair kits are an ideal way to do your repair systems, and our professionals will come in and do this for you so that your systems and your people can be up and running in short order. So there's also a way that's common within the industry to protect your framing systems. There are end of aisle guards. This is a narrow aisle guard which has the guarding system right up close to the actual frame itself, and this one gives some distance away from the frame. Both have anchors, 7-inch anchors that are either 3 or 4 in length, depending on the length of the overall end of row guard. And so all of the impact of turns and front-on impacts that happen at the end of row quite often are taken by this impact-bearing guard on the end of the aisle. So MacRack carries those types of aisle guards. And then on the individual columns of the frames, you can get smaller impact guards that will protect even the bottom for the forklift from clipping the bottom and shearing the anchor bolts off. So we have either the shorter units that protect only the bottom, or we have a extended unit that will actually protect up to 24 inches of the base of your unit. All of these have anchors. You can't see here, but there's an anchor inside the nose of each one of these. And in these particular cases, there's 2 anchors behind this one and 1 behind that, so that you have an anchor points, additional anchor points that are taking the impact rather than the anchor points of the base plates of your various columns of your frames. So that's another way to protect it. If you're getting damage higher up your frame, then this might be the solution for you. This product will protect your frame from impacts that happen higher up on your frame in maybe a shelf that has a high amount of traffic or a high amount of pivoting that the blades of the forklift might strike the frame and the upright column. So we at MacRack adhere to the ANSI standards and the RMI standards for engineering and best standard practices for your warehouse system, both in the installing and the creation and manufacture of all the parts that we have. So that's your pallet rack frame overview and how to repair, inspect, and see damage within your racking system and how important your frames are to your overall racking system. So if you have any questions about your frames, how to repair, how to inspect, call us at MacRack or get in touch with us online, and we're here to help.